In today's video, we have multiple interesting things to take a look at. First off, that tropical storm Fiona that we really need to watch here in the eastern and the Gulf states of the United States. Mostly just the eastern United States, although things are looking pretty bright with that one out to sea. It looks to be the best scenario and most likely scenario here, which is really good news. We have two upcoming potential really impactful Arctic blasts that I'll explain a little bit deeper later on, and even a little bit of a nor'easter pattern along those cold fronts that come through. Can't be ruled out, and I actually have a model here to show you that does say that that is what's going to occur. We're taking a look here at our current radar imagery, first things first, and we can see that there is a little bit of storminess here offshore of the northwest. Also, for the southern Rockies, we see some storminess left over. And then it's this north-central United States region that has the most storminess going on. Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas, and Montana up there, as well as the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Outside of that, we just have this activity here along the Gulf and the southeast of the United States that's pretty much always there. Let's just zoom in here to some different regions. We do have this storminess, like I mentioned, around for this area. And as we move a little bit further south, we can see that there is these isolated and scattered about showers and storms going on here for Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, and a little bit of southern Idaho as well. Definitely a little bit less than what we've been seeing in days past for that region. Some thunderstorms really brewing out here in kind of the Midwest and also the Great Plains. We see for Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin here. We see these thunderstorms really firing up here near Omaha, Cedar Rapids as well, and probably heading towards the Chicago region and some of the cities there in southern Wisconsin. We can also see as we move a little bit further north that there is some heavier pockets of showers here for North Dakota there, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. So we see some areas up in this region seeing some storminess as well. Now as we take a look at the southeast, we can see that there is just this storminess around pretty much surrounding Florida at this point, offshore of the west coast and the east coast of Florida. We're seeing some of this, and it is coming onshore for regions near Jacksonville and just south of Jacksonville as well with some of those thunderstorms. We also see some of this isolated activity moving from east to west, which is pretty interesting. Usually this stuff is not moving in this direction. We're seeing it move just like this, which could lead towards some of these coming onshore, especially for these coastlines there in Texas and Louisiana. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on, and we're going to move on towards that model guidance where we have some very interesting things to go over. Now, here we are, first things first, taking a look at our storminess that is upcoming. As we take a look at Saturday the 17th, we can see this is today. I don't know why I just said it that way, but we see some storminess spreading across these regions, so it is expanding a little bit. We see the storminess here is coming onshore to Florida later this afternoon and the rest of the southeast and Gulf states. That's what's going to be happening later on. By the time we reach just tomorrow on Sunday, which is going to be September 18th, we see that storminess around for Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. We see that around for California here. We're seeing some of this storminess taking place, a big old storm system moving onshore. We talked about that pretty extensively yesterday. We see some storminess here for the kind of north central United States and also the northeastern United States there. So these two regions seeing particularly quite a bit of storminess in here. We also see Fiona there on the very bottom right. We'll see how this model has that storm track. By the time we're reaching Monday, the 19th of September, we see a couple interesting things happening here. First off, this storm for California is expanding and leading towards more impacts here. We see some snowfall here for the very far northern Rockies there. And then we see some storminess really spreading across Canada especially, but also there in the north central United States, in North Dakota and Minnesota we see some of that. But especially the northeast, where we're seeing pretty widespread storminess there from Ohio up through Pennsylvania and into the New England states as well, up here in the northeast. Now for Tuesday, which will be September 20th here, we see a storm system here and a storm system here, as well as Fiona over the Bahamas as well. So we have multiple different things going on. Some snowfall spreading into the United States here through Montana, which is also very interesting. And then you can see from the west, we have multiple spots with some storminess around. So there's too many to even mention, but there's multiple different areas seeing some storminess there. Now by Wednesday, which will be September 21st, this is when we're going to see that first major Arctic blast, and actually the more major of the two. We do see some storminess down here for the southwest. We see Fiona heading almost directly northwards. The good thing is that this likes to show a trajectory, something like this, which would obviously lead towards some coastal impacts with some waves and things like that, but obviously not nearly the amount of impacts that we would have if the storm literally was along the coast. So that's really good news if we do see that occur like that. We see a stronger low here, 995. We see the Arctic air right here, and we see a cold front just like this. We're going to see this cold front really dive in, and this is what's going to allow for that cold air to move in. 986 millibar low pressure center now, and a 998, kind of a nor'easter wants to develop along this cold front a little bit there. Cold front is stretching just like this. And what's interesting on this run compared to others is that we're seeing really a lot of impacts along this entire cold front as far as storminess. There is storminess all the way from Utah and Colorado, all the way eastward through the plains into kind of the mid-Atlantic and the northeast there. So we're seeing really, really interesting impacts with this. Definitely worth noting for sure. And yeah, just a lot of storminess. Very, very interesting stuff here. And we see Fiona is really intensifying here out in the Atlantic. We're seeing plenty of intensification with that one. The cold front moves offshore as we're reaching Friday, September 23rd, and Fiona kind of rides along that. That's very frequent that we see with tropical systems. When they find that cold front, they kind of get really drawn into it and they ride right along it. So it kind of becomes more engaged with that, and all of this storminess comes together here. This could lead towards more impacts for the Northeast, I guess, than if it didn't have a cold front. And it does move up into Canada, which is definitely worth noting. More like a nor'easter at this point, but would definitely lead towards some very interesting impacts for these regions. Very, very interesting scenario to think about there, and even leads towards some snowfall here for Canada, which tropical systems and snowfall lead towards a lot of snowfall oftentimes when they combine like that. We do see some snowfall occurring for the Rockies again here as well, in Saturday the 24th heading into Sunday the 25th. And then by the time we're reaching around Monday, Tuesday time frame, which will be 26th, 27th, we see our next Arctic blast really trying to come through. 992 millibar low pressure center there. Strong cold front here. This time stretching all the way down to the Gulf states, you can see. So very interesting scenario. And just like the one before it, we see impacts along this entire cold front there. So some cold fronts come through pretty innocently. It's just the temperature switch. And then some are like this, where it's just total storminess along the entire thing. And both of the cold fronts we see in this 10-day period on this model run are the more stormy of the two types that we can frequently get. Now, as far as total precipitation through the next 10 days, it's looking a little bit more stormy because of these two pretty impactful cold fronts that we see now showing on the model run. So we're seeing anywhere from about 1/10 of an inch or less there in the grays. Your whites will be practically no precipitation, by the way. Your greens will be 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Your blues will be 1/2 an inch to an inch. Your yellows will be 1 inch to 2 inches. Your reds will be 2 to 5 inches. So we see plenty of that going on for multiple regions. First off, this storm for the west. Here in the Four Corner states, we see that, and then a lot of the northeastern and north central United States as well, seeing those types of amounts, and then just Florida and Texas, so some isolated regions in the southeast, but really it's mostly this northern region and then the west that we're seeing a lot of those 2 to 5 inch amounts. And I'm not really seeing any 5 to 10 inch amounts anywhere in the United States. We won't really go over it, but that would be the browns, which would be 5 to 10 inches of precipitation. Now, total snowfall here, we see a little bit going on here around New England and Canada, but that's a little bit later on. Take it with a grain of salt. We see some snowfall happening for some mountaintops there in California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and then even down through Colorado as well. If you're anywhere in the grays, that would be probably just flakes or dusting, if anything. Your blues would be 2 to 6 inches of snowfall, and then purples would be 6 to 10. Pinks would be 10 to 20. So we see some of those 10 to 20 inch amounts for this isolated area there in Canada. Now, as far as the temperatures, I'm sure you guys are really curious. A little bit of a spoiler alert there. This is what we're left with right now. Cold in the west, cold in the east. Now, I want to address some comments I got yesterday because we were talking about Arctic blasts, and people were like, well, you know, my local weather source is calling for record heat. So why are you seeing Arctic blast? Well, it's all about timing, right? The whole 10-day period isn't going to be one particular air mass. We are going to get record heat for some spots, followed by a very extreme Arctic blast, actually, that could lead towards very equally far below normal temperatures as the above normal temperatures we're going to see before it. So I'll let that play out and actually show you guys, just because I know a lot of people have been talking about that. Between now and then about Sunday, we see things really warm up in the east. We see in the reds here, mostly these reds that are deeper, that's going to be about 10 to 15 degrees above normal. So if your average temperature was even just 70, we'd be looking at 80 to 85 degrees. So, take that as you will, but your average temperature, that's how far above it you're going to be. Now, this is when kind of more of like record heat starts showing up Tuesday, September 20th, especially for these browns. The browns are going to be about 20 to 30 degrees above normal, which is very significant. If your average temperature was 70, you'd be at about 90 degrees. So obviously a huge departure from what's typical. And that even reaches down to the kind of further south here a little bit once we're taking a look at Wednesday the 21st here. Again, 20 to possibly 30 degrees above normal in these brown areas. But look what's right behind it. This Arctic blast. And what do I mean by Arctic blast? I don't mean 20 degrees. I mean an air mass coming from the Arctic regions blasting into the United States. This particular Arctic blast will feature far below normal temperatures, and we'll watch that happen. As we reach Thursday, we see it's reaching far, far south, and it's pushing the record heat out. So neither me or your local weather is wrong. There will be record heat, and then there will be an Arctic blast. Both are happening, and they don't contradict one another, and I hope that is, pretty clear here. We see that this heat is right out ahead of it, and I think this is why the cold front ends up being so violent and featuring so much precipitation, because we see the greens and then the dark reds so close to each other. Look at the kind of mid-Atlantic here. Look at how close those deep reds are to those greens. The deep reds are 20 degrees above normal, 15 to 20 degrees above normal. The greens are 10 to 15 degrees below normal. So that's possibly as far as a 30-degree difference in temperature, 30 to 40 degree temperature difference there within just about 100 miles or so. So very, very crazy departure from each other there, just northern Virginia to southeastern Virginia here, or Tennessee to North Carolina, South Carolina to Tennessee, Georgia to Tennessee. These temperature departures are very, very close to each other, very extreme as well. And we see that cold front fully blast down. And the high temperatures on Friday, look at that cold air. So we see greens would be 10 to 15 degrees below normal. So again, if your average temperature is 75, you're possibly at about 65 or 60 degrees as a high temperature. That's if your average temperature is 75. So very far below normal. And we even see some of these blues within the greens popping up. That's 15 to 25 degrees below normal, so even further below normal temperatures there. That's, again, the high temperatures on Friday, September 23rd, coming up in just about 6 days or so. We see this continues on through the morning on Saturday, and even the high temperatures on Saturday, September 24th here, so we're seeing those really, really cold temperatures compared to normal. And then Sunday, that kind of moves out. We see more neutral or above normal temperatures here for the eastern United States, but we have our next Arctic blast right behind it moving in. And that's the end of the model run right here, is it's moving into the central United States and probably going to push eastward. Very interesting stuff. Again, record heat for some spots, yes, but also an Arctic blast following it. Maybe even record lows if we see the 20 to 25 degrees below normal. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at your 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook. No, better yet, we're going to take a look at your cone forecast for Tropical Storm Fiona. Here it is, and as you can see, Tropical Storm Fiona won't be a tropical storm too long, because by 8 p.m. tomorrow, Fiona is expected to be a hurricane over Puerto Rico, and it is tracking further and further south. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more direct impacts to Dominican Republic and Haiti as this storm just continues to just track further and further south than expected. Very interesting, but as you can see, that curvature is definitely expected, and we have a pretty long way to go if this one was the trend westward towards the United States. So things are looking a lot brighter this morning than they were yesterday morning as far as the trajectory of the storm. But this one has been a really tough one to forecast, and I wouldn't really rule anything out at this point with how far this one has departed from what is forecasted. I'd really, really watch this one closely until it's all said and done. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe and tune in daily as we go over all these topics like the temperature pattern, the storminess, and the tropics. Also, be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it and leave a comment down below with your thoughts. I'll see you guys in the next video.